Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Sentinel Report. I'm your host, Alex Newman. Thanks so much for being with us. We just got back from the ReAwaken America event. That was so much fun. We're going to show you a 15-minute talk I gave there about the diabolical march toward one world government, so stay tuned for that. We also have a very, very special guest joining us to discuss prosecuting the Biden crime family, and a lot going on the campaign trail as we head up to one of the most consequential elections in the history of the world. The contrast could not be clearer. But first, a word from the Word. This comes out of John, chapter 15, verse 5. The Bible reads, I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever abides in me and I in him, he it is that bears much fruit. For apart from me, you can do nothing. So there you have it, folks. Apart from God, you can do nothing. We need to always remind ourselves of that because, otherwise we get all proud and think, oh, I'm going to do this and this in my own power. Yeah, it doesn't work that way. So let's go right to the campaign trail. Incredible things happening on the campaign. And we had two different interesting events at two different campaign rallies, one for Kamala and one for Trump, about Jesus. Let's check that out, starting with the Kamala rally. This starts at 26 seconds.
Oh, you guys are at the wrong rally. No, I think you meant to go to the smaller one down the street.
Anti-Christian rhetoric and anti-Christian approach to public policy. I don't think that we've, that's right, Jesus is king, and I don't think that we've seen...
Wow. Well, of course, Jesus is king. Jesus is Lord, regardless of what Kamala Harris thinks about it or even what J.D. Vance thinks about it. It's a fact. King of kings, Lord of all lords. Joining us to discuss is Andrew Muller, Chief of Operations at Liberty Sentinel Media, also a contributor to the New American Magazine. Andrew, welcome. What do we get out of this Jesus is king, Jesus is Lord, and the incredibly different reactions from two of our top political officials?
Yeah, well, I think it's just emblematic, Alex, of just the divide we see in our politics. I mean, even just the presidential race aside, we see that what we believed about the Democrat Party is actually coming to light. They're not even faking to, shill to Christians or to Catholics or anything like that, like they used to kind of give lip service to us and say that they believed in what we believe in. We saw a little bit of that with Tim Walz quoting the scripture in his debate with J.D. Vance, but that's kind of a bygone era of Democrats kind of catering to people of faith. This is just huge, in my opinion, because now the veneer of kind of selling to people of faith from the Democrats is just gone. It's just pure, you're at the wrong rally, you guys don't belong here, our values don't align, so pack up and go and be a Republican or whatever you got to do because we're just going to go on without you. And I just think that this really illustrates that America is not in a political battle. We're in a spiritual battle. And one side recognizes that there is a God, that God is real. And as J.D. Vance said, Christ is king. And those things are true regardless of what they say. But now the gloves are off with the Democrats. They're not even playing lip service. They're not even faking some veneer of religion to get votes. Now it's just pure anti-God, anti-religion. And ultimately, the Democrat Party is a demonic death cult. That has absolutely no crossover with any sort of Christian ideals. They're the exact opposite of what the Bible says, and now that's just obvious campaign rhetoric. So if you're a Christian voter, this is the ultimate time for you to speak out. It's never been easier for you to speak out because the lines are so clear and the policies are so different from that of the scripture and what the Bible would command for his people to do. And there's no excuse to be silent this go around because it's that obvious.
Yeah, it's really interesting. One party deliberately supports the deliberate killing of unborn babies. And so when she says, hey, you think Jesus is Lord, you're probably at the wrong rally. She's probably right. You're probably at the wrong rally because killing babies is wrong. And so is virtually everything else that the Democrat Party is doing. And we don't want to give a full pass to the GOP. We know we've got plenty of rhinos, plenty of others who are not saying and doing what they should. But boy, is the contrast becoming more and more clear. And folks, yep, you may be at the wrong rally if you think Jesus is king and you are campaigning for Democrats. Now, we've got over in Nevada, early voters are showing some real serious passion as Republicans turn out in huge numbers. We've got twice as many Republicans voting as Democrats so far in the Silver State, just one day after in-person election. in-person voting started. Pretty interesting here. We've got a massive Republican turnout, and I think we're going to see similar things. What do you think, Andrew? Are Trump voters, Republican voters, more energized than Kamala voters?
Well, the data is certainly showing that, Alex. This piece from the Epic Times shows that Republicans in Arizona are now really coming through, or Nevada, sorry, are coming through. 22,000 votes for Republicans so far in the early voting compared to 11,000 at early voting locations across the Silver State. And it's a pattern that is actually being very emblematic of what's to come. One of the most populous counties in Nevada, Clark County, 14,000 Republicans turned out compared to 9,000 Democrats. So I think that hopefully we're seeing a huge energized appeal for Trump across the states. But something that's concerning me, Alex, is a lot of people in the GOP, a lot of people in Trump's camp are encouraging voters to go and vote early. And I know they've given a lot of reasons for that, that they say, hey, if we can get all these votes early, doing a big dump on November 5th on election night is going to be a lot more obvious, because if the conservatives, the right wing, come out and vote early, we're going to have all of this, all these ballots for Trump already in the bank, already there, already counted. And then if they do a massive dump on election night, that just spike is going to be super apparent, super obvious. But I'm a little concerned about what this means for the future of voting, because if everyone's always voting early and we have voting for 4 weeks before the election, I really think that goes around to the constitutionally set date for elections. I think that voting on election day in person is something that's very unique and very special. We're all making the same decision with the same amount of information, the same amount of news, and no one is ignorant to what happens, because a lot can happen in 4 weeks in elections. So I hope that in this particular election, we see this is just a good headway for Trump, and that means he's going to win in a landslide, which is what I hope happens. But I think looking forward, we really ultimately need to go back to that ideal of voting on election day, single day voting. That's what the founding fathers had in mind. Everyone votes with the same amount of information on election day. I think that's the best way to move forward. So ultimately, this story, I think, is a positive for people who love America first, but I still am not sold on this early voting idea, which is what this whole headline is all about.
Yeah, you and me both. And folks, if you don't know, Andrew and I are going to Mar-a-Lago tomorrow for the movie premiere.
Yep.
Just recently, we had an incredible guest on, made a new movie about Trump. We'll be over there tomorrow, bringing you some stuff. We'll have some exclusive stuff here for the show, probably next episode on Wednesday. So stay tuned for that. Folks, I want to turn back to another Trump rally, and this is important. You've got Elon Musk now explaining why he has become politically active in this fight. I want you to listen.
I haven't been politically active before. I'm politically active now because I think the future of America and the future of civilization is at stake. So,
Yeah, I agree. The future of our country, the future of our civilization is literally at stake. I don't want this to look like a rah Elon Musk. And I saw the other day, Clay Clark showed me this. CNN praising Elon Musk because he's ushering the fourth industrial revolution. And then he flipped to Fox and they're praising him because he's saving freedom. Whenever CNN and Fox are both praising you, something is suspicious. But he's got another really good clip here about what he says he is supporting. And I want to air that because it's really important. I think this is something that almost all legitimate, sensible Americans could agree on. Let's hit that clip.
and I think the things we all want are simple, sensible, I think common sense things. We obviously want secure borders. We want safe cities. Sensible spending, so that we don't have crazy inflation. We want freedom of speech. We want the Constitution to be upheld. And you know what? I'm being told at times that these are like right-wing values. I'm like, are you insane? This is literally the fundamental values that made America what it is today. And anyone who is against those things is fundamentally anti-American. And the hell with them.
Yeah. And I think they're like, yeah, we are fundamentally anti-American. And what are you going to do about it, right? So truly a despicable time in our country where we've got at least a significant segment of the country that is working to undermine everything that is good and true about Americans and America. Just in the interest of time, I want to jump right to the next one. Customs and Border Protection had a really important clip that they posted on X. They want you to know that they're being wise stewards of your tax dollars. And at first I thought this had to be some kind of parody. I mean, these guys are like, yeah, we're doing cleanup after Hurricane Milton. You know, if the border was perfectly secure and not one illegal immigrant was going through, I'd still say this was outrageous. You know, I don't know what these guys make, probably 30, 40 bucks an hour, maybe more, you know, plus pension, plus benefits. You know, my 12-year-old son could easily carry that log over there with less effort in less time. And, you know, he's not being paid a pension and lots of benefits and things like this. But right now we got the border wide open. We've got illegal immigrants running around all over our country. It's truly incredible. What do you say, Andrew?
Well, it's so funny watching that clip, Alex, because as far as I can count, there's probably 10 to 15 guys there moving one log that's about a foot long. It takes them about a minute to do it. But this is just so emblematic of what our government does, right? Is that it's the maximum amount of resources for the minimal amount of results. So they just need to give money, or, you know, they just need to let the taxpayer keep their money, let the local officials, the local first responders, Samaritan's Purse, Cajun Navy, those types of organizations, let them do the on-the-ground work. Give the American people more of their tax money, cut these regulations, cut funding for these clown car, clown show organizations like FEMA, for example, and let the private sector do what it does best, because these entities don't do their jobs. They don't do them efficiently, and it's not constitutional. So this video, really, like you said, it's like an SNL skit. How many monkeys does it take to unscrew a light bulb? But this time it's with a log. It's insane, Alex. Let the people keep their tax money. Let the private sector do what they do best.
Yeah, and speaking of incompetence in government, this one is huge, folks. I want you to see this article. You've got massive swarms of drones running around U.S. military bases for weeks on end, and the Pentagon has no idea what's going on. Wow. You'd think that's probably a pretty big threat to national security. You got drones flying over the largest naval base in the world right there in Norfolk, Virginia, right where the home for SEAL Team 6 is at. Incredible. All these drones, they don't know where they're coming from. They arrested a communist Chinese officer, and nobody knows what is going on here. Truly incredible. And one more on government incompetence. This one's incredible. You know, the people who are telling you that your gas that you exhale is a toxic pollution that's going to destroy the planet, this is them driving by in a 75-car motorcade. This is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and Joe Biden. So this is what they mean with climate friendly. They're going to go by like some sort of Roman imperial godmen with a 75 car, each of these, of course, armored and filled with taxpayer funded security officers and bureaucrats. And you need to ride your bicycle. OK, you need to stop flying. You need to stop eating hamburgers. You need to eat bugs because it's bad for the climate. But this is them, right? Your imperial overlords. They're going to save the climate with this kind of nonsense. It is so outrageous. You almost don't know what to say about it. And of course, Governor Kathy Hochul has just signed a gun control bill, which requires licensed gun dealers to post signs about the alleged dangers of owning firearms at your place of business. Incredible. So we got a lot more, but we're almost out of time. And folks, we've got to get to our guest here. But I do want to remind you before we go, you need to tune in to Refining Rhetoric. Our friend Robert Bortons, he's the CEO of Classical Conversations. That's the nation's leading homeschool company. He's engaging with thought leaders from across the spectrum in culture, education, government, business, using the time-tested classical tools of learning. And so these conversations cut right to the heart of complex topics and encourage listeners to seek truth in every aspect of life. So tune in. You can find him at refiningrhetoric.com, refiningrhetoric.com. I was blessed to be on there just recently talking about education in my new book. So stay with us, folks. We're going to be right back after this quick break with a very special guest.
We're living in World War III, an all-out attack against the Christian church, the Christian faith, and families everywhere. With over 80% of professing Christian teens abandoning the faith by their early 20s, it's clear we're in a spiritual battle for our very lives, and those of every generation after us. Hosea 4:6 says, "My people perish from lack of knowledge." That's why GTI created our new You Are What You Think biblical worldview package, combining short video teachings along with textbooks, all designed to equip you and your family to discern the good ideas from the evil. Enjoy vibrant discussions over the critical issues of the day using the Bible as your guide. Go to gtimin.com, click the blue banner at the top, and enter the coupon code Newman at the checkout to receive this powerful series for only $99. That's gtimin.com, click the banner at the top, and enter the coupon code Newman at the checkout. Or purchase it directly from libertysentinel.org.
Welcome back to the program. Alex Newman here, your host. This is the Sentinel Report. And I told you we had a very special guest coming on the program, and I guarantee you we're not going to disappoint. We have America's mayor joining us to talk about one of the most important subjects. You know, I've been telling you guys for years, we must have accountability. We can't just have a power transition and just pretend like none of this happened. There must be accountability. And America's mayor, Rudy Giuliani, the former mayor of New York City, cleaned up a cesspool of filth there, both as U.S. attorney and also as mayor, taking down the mob and just so much good work there, cleaning up the city. That was from 1993 to 2001 that he served as mayor. He's got a new book. It's called Biden Crime Family, The Blueprint for Their Prosecution. And that sounds kind of inflammatory until you realize the extent of the crimes that have been perpetrated against our people, against our country by really a criminal family. Rudy, welcome to the program. It is so great to have you with us. Thank you. And I want to get straight into this. Are you suggesting seriously that the Biden crime family be prosecuted for their crimes?
Should have been in 2019, 2020, before the election. They could have been indicted before he was named the Democratic nominee. All the evidence were there. There was a case with 9 witnesses, documentary evidence, a confession. I would describe it as having been the person who really initiated RICO prosecutions in the United States, and probably have done more of them than anyone. Could have been the easiest RICO case I ever had. All you need are the documents from Ukraine. Right now, they're being covered up by Zelensky, which is another tragedy that the American people aren't told. Zelensky is fully aware of all of Biden's crimes. He's also fully aware of the crimes of his predecessor, the president of Ukraine. And his mentor is one of the crookedest organized criminals in Ukraine, Kolomoisky, who ran the Privat Bank and made him a millionaire, Zelensky, a millionaire, maybe a billionaire with crooked money. So, I mean, Biden is carrying this war on with criminals like him. So you wonder why they're in a stalemate where nobody can win, but billions of dollars can flow. Now, you got to be stupid not to figure out what they're doing with that. So this is both a past book and a current book. And before he leaves office with all kinds of false, phony accolades, people should know he was the most crooked president in American history. There's no one even close. Agnew's bribe was $2,500. When he was vice president, he took down more like $30 or $40 million.
It's unbelievable, Mr. Mayor. And you also, in your book, you detail that it's not just Joe Biden himself, right? This isn't like the normal political corruption where somebody just kind of takes a bribe, puts it in a bank account. He's got his whole family involved here. He's got his drug-addicted son, Hunter. He's got his brother, James, serving as a bagman, you say in the book. Sometimes working with Hunter. And it seems like, and you detail this in your book, back when he was serving as vice president, all these different policy areas that he was put in charge of, he found a way to milk these for lots of money. So talk about how this is like a family affair here.
Yeah, sure. It began as a kind of trailer trash group of low-level trash family who were sucking out every bit of pennies they could get through their connections with Joe. That was his brothers. Then his son got a big job with MSNA Bank. He never showed up. That was a bribery scheme that went on for about 8 years. And Joe was nicknamed Mr. MSNBA by his colleagues because he was the only Democrat who would vote for bank-oriented things because his son was being paid off for him. So he was a well-known crook when he ran for president in 1987, 88. They tossed him out then as a pathological liar with a statement by liberal reporters, thank God he didn't run for president, he's too dishonest. And then when he was in the Senate and he got power, he started to make real money. When he became vice president, he really cashed in. So every time Biden appointed him a point man, you can count on 2 things happening, which I could prove even before the hard drive. With the hard drive, It's not even worth proving. You can just read it. Every time he was appointed point man, America got royally screwed, and he made millions. Let's start with Iraq. He was supposed to negotiate a status of forces agreement as the point man for Iraq. He caved into Iraq, and Brother James got a big piece of a $1.5 billion housing contract in Iraq, and he knew nothing about housing. Sound familiar? Then he moves over to Ukraine. He gets named point man in Ukraine. He's supposed to help them win the war against Russia. He doesn't even give them guns. He's supposed to fund them, and he's supposed to break down the corruption. What happens? They don't defend against Russia. Russia takes over in a place that they could never really be dislodged without a major war. It was over then. And he does nothing about the corruption in Ukraine, but joining it, and walks out of the Ukraine with $8 million we can prove, and another $12 million that witnesses say offshore bank accounts, witnesses available that the FBI has never interviewed, who will give you exactly where those bank accounts are. Also about 20 other politicians, which is why they don't do it. And then he moves on to Russia, where he gets 3.5 million from somebody closest to Putin. You wonder why he did strange favors for Russia, like cancel our pipeline and authorize their pipeline. You got to be a communist to do that. No, paid off by Russia. 3.5 million, Butarina, biggest female crook in Russia. And then we move on to the big one. These are all nothing compared to his sellout to Red China, where I could document before the hard drive about $20 million going to his family and to him from China while he was vice president and shortly thereafter. Now it's gotten up to about 40 to 50 million with the hard drive. Now, the answer to it all is there's one key email that the press still covers up, even some of the conservative press who I don't understand. On Christmas Day 2018, Hunter writes to his daughter, "I've been disrespected by this family for years. I've been paying all the bills for 30 years. And for 30 years, Pop requires me to give him half my salary." The money coming into Hunter is all coming in from foreign countries, many of them deadly enemies of the United States. And half of it, he tells you, he's given to his father. That's called an admission. It's admitted at trial as evidence. Hunter doesn't even testify. You just put it in evidence. And a judge tells the jury that that's very strong evidence because that's a confession that's voluntary. He's telling his daughter this. No one's questioning him. No one's pressuring him. No one's torturing him. So going back to Magna Carta, England, this is considered one of the strongest pieces of evidence we have in a criminal trial. This is a voluntary admission of massive guilt on the part of him and his father for 30 years. And it explains everything, doesn't it? People would say when this first came out, a rich, smart, crooked Ukrainian who favors Russia, give this drug-addicted kid, not just drug-addicted. I mean, he's pathologically drug-addicted.
He's a crackhead.
Very few times that you find him not using drugs. Even when he goes on rehab, he arranges for drug dealers and prostitutes to come and service him. A few times he charged it to his father because they're so interlinked. And the Secret Service, now protecting Trump, got him out of it. And they got Pop out of it. They've been fixing things from the Biden since I can't even count. And the FBI, of course, this book will show, brought a totally fraudulent case against Trump that they maintained for 4 years after they knew it was false in order to frame him. And they're investigating the attempts to murder him. That'd be like somebody attempting to murder you and the police department that's investigating had threatened and had tried to destroy you a year earlier. That helps. So I think this book is very necessary so this guy doesn't go out of office. And he's going out of office, and she's going down big time, much bigger than people think. But he doesn't go out with some kind of a false picture that he was in the least degree honest or that he was a decent person. I mean, this isn't, I don't think I have this in the book, but let me give you an insight. Somebody wrote, some jerk, Christoph or somebody in the Times wrote, he's really a good man. That's exactly what he's not. Right. This is a man that won't see his granddaughter. He's never seen his last granddaughter. That's a good man? Or is that a man that's so worried about his horrible hide that he's afraid to have an association with an illegitimate granddaughter? Jesus, he did things that are 50 times worse than an illegitimate granddaughter. He sold out the United States. How does he explain giving the Bagram Air Base to China, 400 miles from China, and getting nothing in return for it? Probably our biggest strategic asset against our biggest enemy, given away by our president. And now I tell you, he got 21 million from them, and that's not a bribe.
Yep.
Give me a break.
Yeah,
I
Rudy,
prosecuted
I
too
really
many
want to.
real criminals not to recognize them.
Yeah, I want to dig into this because this is way beyond just standard corruption, right? You know, sending a contract to your brother-in-law's
Way
company
beyond.
to build a road. We're talking about betraying our country to our most significant
Yes.
geopolitical foe that literally is preparing its population for war against us, that has already declared people's war, unrestricted warfare on us. At what point do we start bringing in the T word, right? Betraying our country to an enemy.
We should have, the day we got the evidence he was getting money from China. By the way, it should have happened in December of 2015 when it was revealed that Hunter Biden was getting millions from the biggest, crookedest oligarch in Russia, in China. But let me emphasize, this guy was Russian-oriented oligarch, close to Putin.
Mm-hmm.
So here we are on the one hand, theoretically supporting Ukraine against Russia, and we're getting millions, the vice president's getting millions, who's in charge of this, from the Russian-oriented Ukrainian organized crime guy. So they're playing both sides again. They're not. Why do they have Ukraine in a no-win war? Because it's all about flow of money. We have given 14 billion to Israel that's fighting a real war that actually could help us if they destroy these proxies of Iran that wants to destroy us. Ukraine is fighting a war without end. The only purpose is to kill Ukrainians and Russians. And the Ukrainians are part of it because they're making money. There's only one purpose for the war to go on now, and that is to produce military contracts. Russia is not going to be moved out of that territory. We will not allow Ukraine to do what it has to do to move them, which is to bomb Moscow. We shouldn't. So, I mean, I don't understand. The American people are stupid enough not to realize they created this. This is a stalemate that's been created. Clinton and Arafat did this. This is a Democrat trick. That's why we have wars on the Democrats to a large extent. Yeah. Now, sometimes they start for the right reasons, but they always continue so that everybody can make money. And then McConnell, who I don't know what he is, his father-in-law is a big Chinese trader. He's a Taiwanese who's making money from Red China. Can't make money from Red China if you're Taiwanese, if you're not a trader. McConnell says, oh, we can be sure there's no corruption because it's going through the military complex. Now, he happened to be part of the Senate that had to pass the law to create the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act because corruption in the military complex is systemic. They'll do business with any group of crooks you find. And they were. Every dictator, American, anti-American, if American military contractors can make money, they do business with anybody. So they've been whacking up money with the crooks in Ukraine since before a lot of people were born. I don't know. McConnell must really think we're stupid. And it's the reason he was trying to push Trump out. Trump knows that he's a creature of Red China. McConnell's wife, her family, is one of the richest families in China, and it comes from Taiwan. Impossible that you're not a trader.
And to your point, this corruption is unfortunately very bipartisan when it comes to communist China. You've got members of the Bush family in the payroll of the CCP and its front groups. It's really bad. Rudy, we've only got about 6 minutes left, and I've got so many questions I want to ask you, but I want to start with this one. The next administration presumably is going to be doing some house cleaning at the Department of Justice. And as we know, the current DOJ, highly weaponized, they've been going after basically Trump's entire inner circle. You, of course, have been a victim of this relentless persecution. A lot of the fake media will say, look, this is just Rudy and Trump and these guys just trying to get revenge. These aren't real crimes. What do you say to that? Let's get ahead of that argument. Is this just about revenge, or is this necessary?
Absolutely not.
For the survival of America?
I respect our criminal justice system too much, and I realize what's needed to fix it. to ever result to revenge. I mean, I've done this much more often than they have, and much more success. I mean, they can't even touch a tenth of my record in what they've done and I've done as a prosecutor. And I never brought a false case. I would not bring a case against them if it was even exaggerated. What we have to do is bring cases against them when we have good cases. We have to restore the criminal justice system for what it is. Very harsh and very, very difficult when it's sure it's right and it can prove it's right. And very understanding when it could possibly be wrong. And certainly stay out of the political realm, as we have up until Biden forever. Never was an ex-president prosecuted until Biden prosecuted Trump. And they want to say he wants to take away democracy. That's the usual Democrat projection. You know, collusion in Russia, false, lying. Collusion in Ukraine for the Democrats. No wonder they want to keep the money going. They've got a relationship with Ukraine going back to. And second, our job is to prosecute the really guilty, not prosecute the innocent, and on the ones that are close, to make a decision in favor of non-prosecution, which is I always did. You don't bring close cases against people with national significance, can break up the credibility of the criminal justice system. And I was very good at that. I prosecuted just about an equal number of Republican and Democrats, Democratic senators, Democratic congressmen, county executive, Republican commissioners. My view is that we need a Republican attorney general that goes back to the ones that straightened things out after Watergate. Levy, Smith, even the judge that was put up by Carter. Well, we had a string of real, and Ed Meese. We had a string of real attorneys general until Holder. Holder is the one who first corrupted the Justice Department, big time, much bigger than he's ever been held accountable for. And Holder used to work for me. Holder used to work for me.
Wow. So I want to ask you, Rudy, we've got 4 minutes left, and obviously the cleanup of the DOJ and the cleanup of the FBI is going to be a massive undertaking. I'm hopeful that Trump will bring in people like you, people like Jeff Clark, people who know the system, people who've been in the system, and also people who understand that we need to fix this. In just a couple of minutes, what does that cleanup look like? I mean, who would be some good people for the job? Where do you even start with this? Obviously, prosecuting Biden has got to be a big part of it, but where do you start with this?
Well, there are a lot of good people for the job. You've got over the years, and we can go back 30, 40 years, you've got U.S. attorneys, both Democrat and Republican, and I probably could put the list out for you of incredible integrity. And you got guys that are criminals, and they seem to pick the one like this guy Smith. If you wanted a fair prosecutor, you don't pick a guy whose case got reversed by the Supreme Court 8-0 for being a lousy, unethical prosecutor. I mean, he basically did already the crime that they want him to commit against Trump. They framed him in it. And the Supreme Court reversed the case. And then he's repeating it right now. No prosecutor puts out a report like he put out a week ago. I never put out reports on the evidence coming up in my case. Never heard of that. He is a pure, crooked politician. So it's going to be easy to fix the Justice Department. You get rid of anybody. Now that one, you get rid of anybody where there's a doubt. You don't need a doubt about it. You can go find hundreds and thousands of good lawyers to replace them in a matter of months. When I worked for President Ronald Reagan, I replaced 87 U.S. attorneys in less than 6 months. And we had the best group of attorneys ever, and we reduced crime and set the country on a crime reduction program that went on for 25 years. It can be done. There are a lot of extraordinarily good people that want to serve, but not when we have the chief crook as commander-in-chief. You want to serve in a Biden, Hunter Biden administration. Good lawyers read this, even Democrats, and they know it's true. Yeah. They know the guy is a disgusting crook and a horrible guy. He's also a mean guy. He yells and screams at his people, treats them like crap. I don't know how these guys get representatives at, like Kamala. Kamala lost 90% of her staff. I never lost 90% of my staff. My staff still has dinners for me. Trump fired a few people. Most of them are still with him. And people have been with him for 30, 40 years and love him. There's nobody he hasn't given money to that's with him that I can think of. They've all been involved in the cover-up, including Stinking Blinken. He framed me with that letter. He framed me with that letter from the 51 crooked intelligence people who said that Trump and I were Russian pawns, which turned categorically untrue, for which they should have their security clearance taken away.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And you think this leak of the Israeli information was an accident? They've had Iranian spies in the White House and in the State Department since Obama. Obama was giving them cash under the table. Anybody else does cash under the table across national lines, you go to jail for years for money laundering, which is where Obama should be.
Yep. And I agree with you. We've got to have accountability going way back. Rudy, this book is essential reading for everybody, for honest Democrats, for people who just want a legitimate justice system in this country.
It's easy to read. And really, I've got to tell you, I've never seen a case as strong as this that has been so distorted by the media. It also gives you a sense, although it's not about that, the American people didn't get the facts. It's because one of the worst things we have, now I can't do that. I can fix the criminal justice system. Somebody's got to fix the media system.
Right. Well, they're losing their credibility rapidly, and it's because they keep lying and because they keep covering up for criminals. Right. If you ask the majority of the American people, the polls show they believe that the media is the enemies of the people, and that's not a term that I chose, but that's what people say, and it's for obvious reasons. Rudy, the book is The Biden Crime Family, the blueprint for their prosecution. It is going to be released on October 29th. It's available for pre-order right now, folks, at Amazon. You even get a little discount if you go get it right now. What's the best place to get it, Rudy, to support you, and how do do find more of your information online?
That's a great place to get it. Just go right there. It's easy.
Amazon.com, the Biden Crime Family, the blueprint for their prosecution. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all that you have done for our country. I look forward to great things from you in the next administration, and I hope we can talk to you again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. All righty, folks, stay with us. We're going to be right back after this quick break. Do go get the book, The Biden Crime Family, the blueprint for their prosecution. This is essential reading. It's not political. It is essential that we do this if our country is going to succeed. We have to have some accountability. So stay with us. We're going to be right back after this quick break with my 15-minute talk at the ReAwaken America Summit. I think you're going to be blessed. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
In 1776, a nation was born, forged in the crucible of revolution. Brave men and women stood together fighting for freedom, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Throughout history, the spirit of patriotism has prevailed. The battles may have changed, but the values remain the same. Today, in 2024, we find ourselves at a pivotal moment where the call for unity, freedom, and a better future echoes louder than ever. Introducing Patriot Mobile, the wireless carrier that stands with you. We are committed to supporting the values that make our nation great. With affordable plans and reliable nationwide coverage, Patriot Mobile is not just a wireless service. It's a call to action for those who believe in the American dream. Because this year is not just any year, it's the most important year since our nation's founding. Choose a wireless carrier that shares your values. Choose Patriot Mobile. For free activation, use promo code Newman.
Welcome back to the Sentinel Report. And this weekend, I was blessed to be a featured speaker at the ReAwaken America event. General Flynn and Clay Clark, a lot of Trump insiders, a lot of the key people for the next administration were there. And I want you to see, I was asked to speak about the relentless march toward global government. Folks, it is closer than it may appear, as they say on the rearview mirrors. So I want you to check this out. We'll be right back.
Hey, guys, what an honor to be here again. Thank you, Clay. Thanks, everybody, for being here. And I was asked to talk about the march toward one world government. So I'm going to show you what the evildoers are doing, but we're going to start with the Word of God. It was God's idea to divide mankind into nations, and he says it clearly multiple times. Deuteronomy chapter 32, in verse 8, it says, God fixed the borders of the people. He divided mankind. Acts chapter 17 says God made from one man every nation of mankind to live on the face of the earth. He even determined allotted periods and the boundaries of their dwelling place. So this was God's idea. You can read the whole story in Genesis chapter 11. The people decided they didn't want to obey God when he said to spread out, and so he came down and solved that issue. The Lord dispersed them over the face of all the earth. And Jesus is very clear about what's going on this planet. You are either with him or against him, is what he says in Luke chapter 11, verse 23, and Matthew chapter 12. There are no neutral areas in this battle. You're either with God or you are against him by default. If you don't know which team you're on, talk to me later. You're probably on the wrong one. So with that in mind, I've been following the clown car known as the United Abominations around the world for about 15 years now. This is me and my colleague Andrew at the UN Summit of the Future that just happened 2 weekends ago in New York City at UN headquarters. They said they were turning the United Abominations into UN 2.0. All over the place, they had plastered this phrase from the Socialist Secretary General. It says, we can't build a future for our grandchildren with a system built for our grandparents. And so we need a UN 2.0. As part of that, they failed in their mission to bring peace to the world. Of course they did. Only Jesus can bring peace. And so now they need to control the economy. They need to control energy. They need to control education. They need to control emergencies and the internet and artificial intelligence and future generations. You can read the agreement yourself. One of the most concerning areas is emergencies. Under the new Pact for the Future, if there is a global emergency, as declared by the Secretary General, he becomes the one world dictator. And it says right in their documents that nations, governments, businesses, social organizations all must bow down to his authority. So I asked the spokesman for the Secretary General about what they're doing. Here is our little exchange at UN headquarters 2 weeks ago.
Oh, Alex Newman with the New American Media.
Yeah.
To the extent that the Summit of the Future and the Pact for the Future have been mentioned by policymakers at all in the United States, it's been very negative. We had a congressional delegation last week, had a press conference say this was an attack on our sovereignty. And last week we had 26 U.S. governors issue a statement saying that they weren't going to comply with UN dictates and mandates. Is the Secretary General concerned about public opposition, especially among Republicans in the United States?
Look, this is not, the Pact for the Future is not about world government. It's about making an organization of independent, sovereign member states work better.
So it's not about world government, but we need one. Listen.
Cooperative body where governments come together, sovereign governments come together to try to solve problems that impacts them all. That try to deal with problems that have no borders, right? Not one country can deal with the rising seas. Not one country can deal with global pandemics. Not one country can deal with international terrorism.
All right, so we don't have a global government. We're not building one, but global problems require global solutions, so we need a global government. Right? Now, if you read the Pact for the Future, and I encourage you to do that, it's very clear. They want to run everything. And one of their big mechanisms is they've got to control your speech. If you read this agreement, it says we need global cooperation to silence misinformation, disinformation, malinformation, hate speech, conspiracy theories, you name it, which means silence everything that goes against our narrative. And so I want to show you Melissa Fleming. She's the UN communications czar. She announced at the World Economic Forum that they have a partnership with Google to silence you. Listen.
We partnered with Google, for example. If you Google climate change, you will, at the top of your search, you will get all kinds of UN resources. We started this partnership when we were shocked to see that when we Googled climate change, we were getting incredibly distorted information right at the top. So we're becoming much more proactive. We own the science, and
we own the science. Talk about somebody who doesn't know what science is. So I had to ask her about this. Like, what did you mean? How do you decide what can and can't be shared?
Hi, I'm Alex Newman with the New American Magazine. I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the partnership that the UN has with Google to try to squelch disinformation and misinformation. You talked about it at the 2022 World Economic Forum.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm not sure who you are.
Alex Newman with the New American. I'm a journalist.
I don't know what the New American is. Sorry, we can't do it right now. You'll give us 2 minutes.
Yeah, sorry, can't talk to you, but I'll talk to everybody else. Here she is talking to a bunch of other reporters. So truly amazing. They don't want to talk about this. But I want to focus for a minute on education, because if you read their own international agreements, here's a list of them, you will find that education is the primary mechanism they're using to brainwash all of our children to submit to this one world system. And the UN's got something they call a World Core Curriculum. It was written by this guy here, Robert Muller, Assistant Secretary General of the UN, the father of global education. And he says in the foreword of the teacher's manual that the underlying philosophy behind it comes out of the books of Alice Bailey from the Tibetan teacher Javal Kul. Well, Alice Bailey was the founder of the Lucifer Publishing Company, so you know where these ideas come from, straight out of the pit of hell. And that Tibetan teacher is not a Tibetan or a teacher or even a human being. He's an ascended master that Alice Bailey claimed to be channeling. And if you've read your Bible, you know that's called a demon, not an ascended master. So if the World Core Curriculum is based on the rantings of this lunatic and her demon, we ought to know what they said. So I bought her books. Education in the New Age is one of them. And they say world citizenship needs to be the goal of the enlightened with a world federation and a world brain. We got to synthesize Marxism and neo-scholasticism using the methods of John Dewey, the founding father of America's public education system. Isn't that cute? And so with that in mind, here's the Secretary General of the United Abominations in 2016 telling you what the schools are going to do.
Education must do more than produce individuals who can read, write, and count. It must nurture global citizens.
Global citizens, right? And you think, that doesn't apply in America. That's just for third world countries. Oh, well, here's the U.S. Secretary of Miseducation for 7 years under Obama.
Hi, I'm Arnie Duncan, U.S. Secretary of Education. And we are so honored that the UN Secretary General has designated the United States as a champion country of the UN Global Education First.
Wow, we're a champion country. Aren't you proud? So where do we fit in? Well, Bill Gates of hell. You love that guy, right? He went over to UNESCO headquarters, the UN Education Agency, in 2004 and signed an agreement with them. They're going to create global standards, global curricula, global teacher training programs. And then he came back to the United States and started pouring literally billions of dollars into this atrocity we call Common Core. Here's a segment from an ad that they bought to tell you how great this was going to be. Listen.
Need are clear goals. That's where the Common Core state standards come in. The standards are consistent from school to school, and they match up against international standards too.
They match up against international standards too. That's an ad they bought so you would know how great this is going to be, all right? They're telling you they're lining up our system with the global system that they're building. It's straight from the pit of hell. I've got a new book out about this. It's called Indoctrinating Our Children to Death. It's been endorsed by General Flynn and Clay Clark and a lot of the speakers here. I encourage you to get a copy. I think I have like 2 here, but you can order it online. Also, we need to rethink the whole idea behind education. I serve as a senior fellow at Classical Conversations, and I love what they say about the purpose of education. The purpose of education is to know God and make Him known. And they're based right here in North Carolina, largest homeschool organization in the world. And then I'm on the board of the Freedom Project Academy, online K-12 classical school. Lots of options, folks. We have got to rescue our children from this wickedness. So back to the Pact for the Future. Within the Pact for the Future, you'll find hundreds of references to the 2030 Agenda Sustainable Development Goals. The head of the UN General Assembly at the time called it the Master Plan for Humanity, and I'm sure God had a good laugh. If you go to goal number 10, global Marxism is the plan. We got to reduce inequality within and among countries, and we can only do that if we share your wealth. We got to take away your wealth and redistribute it to our buddies. We need fundamental changes in the way we produce and consume goods. Karl Marx, pick up the red phone. So they're using a 3-legged stool approach here. The first leg is the governments. Every government in the world in 2015 agreed to this 2030 agenda. The second leg of the stool is the private sector, and so we have Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum signing a strategic partnership with the UN to bring about the 2030 agenda. Here's the press release from the UN. Here's the press release from the World Economic Forum. Now, how do they do this? How are they bringing the business community on board? Well, here's Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock and also a member of the Board of Trustees for the World Economic Forum and the Council on Foreign Relations. Listen.
Well, behaviors are going to have to change, and this is one thing we're asking companies. You have to force behaviors, and at BlackRock we are forcing behaviors.
We're going to force your behaviors, okay? They're bringing religion onto this, right? All the religions of the world are part of a thing called Religions for Peace. And they agreed in 2019, we all commit to sustainable development as set forth in the Sustainable Development Goals, the 2030 Agenda. Here's the lady who runs this abominable organization. Her name is Dr. Azza Karam. Listen to what she says.
My name is Azza Karam, and I have the privilege and the responsibility of serving a worldwide movement of interreligious institutions, organizations called Religions for Peace. In case you do not know it, we think of it as the United Nations of Religions. The United Nations has member states or governments. Religions for Peace has member religious institutions. All religious institutions.
All religious institutions are part of the UN of religions. Terrible people, right? And so I went to Egypt in 2022 for the UN Climate Summit, and they released a document saying we need new moral codes. We need new ethical codes. Those that evolved over the last few thousand years are no longer adequate. So they whipped out a new and improved 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai. All these religious leaders are doing pagan dances, repenting of their climate sins. And I caught up with some of the organizers of this atrocity at the summit. Listen to what one of them told me. His name is Sternlick. He's the CEO of the Peace Department.
All religions teach us to respect the creation that we have been given. And we've done kind of a terrible job of that. And so with a new kind of 10 Commandments of climate change, which are an addendum to, not a replacement for, the original 10 Commandments, and a third covenant that we're some kind of working on between mankind and creation, that we would refocus on those elements of the teachings from across religions that point us in the direction of fixing the problems that we've created, so that life can thrive on this planet and so that we can build that proverbial kingdom of heaven here on earth.
So there you heard it.
All right, so God gave us the original 10 Commandments. They've got a new one. God gave us the old covenant, the new covenant. They've got the third covenant. And we're going to build the kingdom of heaven here on earth. Folks, it's ludicrous. It's blasphemous. It's ridiculous. But we've got all the religions, all the governments, and all the businesses of the world marching in lockstep to hell. And we're the only ones standing against it, it looks like. It's always been the plan right from the very beginning. John Foster Dulles, one of the founders of the UN, said in his book, War or Peace, we're going to use it to set up a one world government. They're telling us publicly now, George H.W. Bush.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
Now, blah, blah, blah. So rule of law to govern nations. We're going to have the UN's peacekeeping troops enforce all of this. You need to know the background of some of these people. But Clinton.
After 1989, President Bush said, and it's a phrase that I often use myself, that we needed a new world order.
A new world order. And Joe Biden.
The affirmative task we have now is to actually create a new world order.
All right, so they all want a new world order. It's
So
going to be a
I think you need
Chinese-style world order.
a new world order that China has to be part of the process of creating it, and they have to buy in. They have to own it the same way as, let's say, the United States owns the Washington Consensus, the current order.
So the most murderous government in human history needs to own the new world order. Yes, they're talking about a one world government.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Absolutely, right? That's why they hate him. When he was in office, he withdrew from this whole list of UN organizations, and he'll do it again. So, folks, let's go to our Bibles. Let's not put our trust in princes in whom there's no salvation, but blessed is he whose help is in the Lord, whose hope is in the Lord his God, right? That's what we need to understand. God wrote about these people 3,000 years ago through David in Psalm 2. The kings of the earth, the princes, the rulers, conspiring together against God and his anointed one. Do you suppose God is scared? No way. In verse 4 in Psalm 2, we read that the one enthroned in heaven laughs, the Lord ridicules them. So the bad news is they're all in really big trouble. They need to repent. The good news is there is salvation in Christ, and they need to trust in him now. Folks, we're in a spiritual battle. We are up against powers, principalities, demons from the pit of hell trying to enslave you, kill your children, and they will stop at nothing to succeed. But God told us how we deal with this. You take your spiritual armor, you take the sword of the Spirit, which is the Word of God, and if God is for us, who can be against us? The God of peace, it says in Romans 16, will soon crush Satan under your feet. And he did it for the folks back then, and he will do it again, I guarantee you.
All right, folks, I hope that was useful for you. Share this out with others, folks. This is information the fake media is hiding from you. Tell them to tune in to the Sentinel Report every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, or however you're consuming this, if it's radio, TV, cable, podcast, whatever your preferred method. But share this out with others. I'm Alex Newman. This is the Sentinel Report. Thanks for watching, and until next time, God bless you all.